Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Tex Messages, the Resurrection. I'm the parasite of the show, Rick Tex. Glad to be broadcasting once again. Now, we are continuing to work on our noise suppression systems. However, what we are doing is we're also piping in ambient environmental noise. So the sound quality may actually be worse because we are including that noise, which we would normally remove the source of. Like, for example, a space heater or some other apparatuses that may be going on in the distance, or a helicopter or something like that. Well, helicopter we don't really have much control over, just kind of going to happen. So that's why we want to test out our sound suppression to see the quality of it and whether it's efficient or not, or it's a complete waste of time. So I mean, if you were to listen to the first episode of Text Messages back in probably last March or so, sound quality was pretty bad, a lot of echoing and everything. Now, at first I didn't think it was a big deal, but it does sort of hurt your eardrums when you listen to it for a while. Just the vibrations and everything are not ideal for just casual listening to. So we're just going to go ahead and try to make some necessary changes and corrections and see where it takes us. Now, what we'll probably start doing is hanging, those 2-inch mattress foam topper pads around here. That'll always suppress a lot of sound. And see, there's voice transmission and then there's other noises too. Voice transmission is usually about 0 to 5 kilohertz, which is very low frequency. So you need pretty thick foam to dampen that. And probably about 3-inch foam works pretty good. Then they got they got these things that are specifically designated as acoustic foam, but really they're not much better than just regular mattress toppers. And you'll find that with a lot of things, ladies and gentlemen. If you buy an item that's designated for its purpose, you may be able to find an alternative item that also serves that purpose for far cheaper because it's in an industry where it's maybe more mass produced, or just there's less demand for it and customers pay less for it. So you always definitely want to look for that if you find items that you feel may have, crossover appeal or whatever the case may be. So that's just a little tip on the side to hopefully save some money in the future. And if you want to save big money, then you should probably shop at Menards. Especially this week, they got the 15% off bag sale, which is a pretty good deal. Able to buy some clamps to hang up all these foam mattress pads. So as long as they fit in the bag, then you get 15% off at the cash register. So it's a very fair offer on the part of John and Paul Menard, the driver of the 27 Ford Fusion NASCAR. So that being said, ladies and gentlemen, the on-air production meeting. So we're definitely looking forward to the future. And what we want to do is we're not necessarily looking more for quantitative audience. We just want quality firsthand. And first it comes with having better sound. Now, you could upgrade the microphone and get a better camera and everything. But it's best to utilize the means you have, because say for example, if you get a better camera but your sound suppression is still horrible, then you still have to fix the sound suppression. But if you get a really good sound suppression and then your camera is pretty much maxed out its potential, you can upgrade the camera and then get the most out of the upgraded camera instead of just spending a whole bunch of money, even though we do have an enormous budget. But if you just spend a whole bunch of money and then find out that you don't have the infrastructure to support it, it's not a good idea. It'd be like getting a car with 300 horsepower, but gas is $15 a gallon. So you can't really use all that horsepower because it's going to cost an enormous quantity of money. So that's sort of how we're dealing with our current issues right now, ladies and gentlemen. And hopefully the studios will get better and exceed any and all expectations. So that's essentially what we're kind of working on. I mean, we've been about a year into the broadcast, but we are still testing and experimenting with things here and there, just trying to get the physical infrastructure up to where it needs to be. That doesn't necessarily mean we're going to stray away from filming in mobile locations or on-site, on-demand, or anything like that. It just means as long as we have our core studio up to spec, then we can start venturing out and doing other things and being great again. And then, of course, that may help with being in an environment too. maybe there could be some mobile sound suppressant to hang out with the camera, with the little finger phones and everything like that. So that's something that we're definitely paying a lot of attention to lately. But we certainly don't want to neglect the needs of our basic content, because that's more or less the bread and butter of the show. I mean, being healthy is great and everything, and makes you great again, and your community is great again, and the country great again. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, on naturalnews.com, what we found is that, so you probably noticed that a lot of food packages come in plastic containers. That may not seem like a big deal, or a plastic bag, or whatever the case may be. But what they found, there's a study that was done, and what it found is that 97% of mac and cheese food was found to contain the chemical used in the plastics, or rubbers, coatings, adhesives, sealants, and painting in inks. So what happens is the powdered cheese, it's a bit fatty. Fatty foods generally receive more of the plastic offput. The chemical leaching, it leaches into the fats more than any other kind of foods. And in fact, Europe actually banned phthalates, which is the compound that's in plastic that contacts fatty foods. But the FDA in America still allows 28 phthalates in food that contacts materials. So Europe is usually, as far as safety, Europe seems to generally be ahead of the FDA. Now, if you ever look into political campaigns and who's assigned to this branch or this head of this department, usually government business or corporate businesses and then government offices or government appointees are sort of intermeshed, which is a very dangerous sign. It's certainly ripe for corruption. But that happens quite often, especially on the national, well, hell, even on the local level too. I mean, somebody might own the local bakery, and then they're on the school board, and then you find out that the school spends hundreds of thousands of dollars on donuts every year. So there's that goes on too. So it's not just on the national level; it's a local level, the state level, municipal level. Probably even goes on inside your own households, ladies and gentlemen. So the phthalates, the reason why phthalates are used, now these are spelled Phthalates. Phthalates. See, all these words, really should start getting a pronunciation of these words before just going on air and just spewing them out, because it is a little disrespectful to you, ladies and gentlemen at home, to not have an accurate pronunciation, because you probably are very concerned about what these ingredients are and the materials that are leaching in your food. It's sort of like when you go to a doctor's office and they write something down on a piece of paper that's supposedly important, and it's about the worst chicken scratch you've ever seen, and there's no way anyone of any race or gender or color or creed could actually identify what the word is. It's very disrespectful. So we're going to try to work on the pronunciation as well. So the phthalates, they act as a binding agent, and they make plastic softer and more flexible. These also act as endocrine disrupting chemicals. They also link to diabetes, heart disease, and osteoporosis in women. Now, in 2014, 12 billion pounds were produced by global chemistry industry. And of course, they migrate into food through packaging. So, if you ever have a choice between glass and plastic, especially microwave, you typically want to choose the glass, because the glass is a more, you could probably consider it a more stable compound. It's not gonna, you can just look at the texture of it. You can scratch plastic and it feels like you're off-putting a lot of the, the material or whatever. But if you scratch glass, it's not, if anything, it's gonna wear away your nails. So that's why glass is a lot more stable. It's in a more solid state. Stuff isn't going to leach into your foods as much as the plastics, especially microwave, because when you microwave and heat stuff up and excite everything, then the molecules have even more tendency to leach into whatever they're coming in contact with. So that's why we definitely advocate for glass packaging. And then, of course, there's higher levels of the phthalates in highly processed or fatty foods. Now, fatty, even like a bar of chocolate, for example, that has enormous amounts of saturated fat. So if that's in plastic, it's going to leach into there too, as well. Which is unfortunate, because chocolate is apparently a very healthy food for many people, and I certainly won't want to We're talking 100% dark chocolate here, not the 40% and then 60% sugar or 30% milk and lactose and all that other weird stuff. So what they found is that mac and cheese had 4 times the amount of phthalates as the natural unprocessed cheese. Now this is just a block of cheese that they most of the times when you buy a block of cheese, it is wrapped in plastic too. So I mean yeah, there's going to be some leaching in there as well, especially because cheese has a lot of fat in it, and butter especially. You may have noticed butter has a different packaging than other types of foods, and it's probably because butter is just one big giant mass of lard or fat, which isn't necessarily a bad thing because it's likely a healthy fat as opposed to margarine, which they found out is just a solid at room temperature, which is apparently very bad and clogs up your arteries. So the cheese slices had 3 times the level of the natural cheese. Now this was the model that I usually follow at the grocery store. If you're going to buy some cheese, you're probably better if you get the sliced cheese, if you get the shredded cheese, or if you get powdered cheese, or if you get the cheese block. The less surface area on the cheese exposed to packaging and processing means it's probably going to be healthier. And that goes with all foods as well. I mean, if you buy chocolate, if you just buy one big large chunk of chocolate, or if you buy little chocolate nibs or bites or squares, whatever they are, then the chocolate bar is going to have less leaching into it. And it may not seem like it's a big deal, but you got to keep in mind, the human diet is, especially in America, is probably at least 80% processed foods that come out of packages. So if every single food you're eating has some degree of leaching into it, then it's definitely a prudent strategy to try to avoid that as much as possible. Now yeah, it's not going to be a perfect bulletproof dynamite system, but just utilizing common sense where necessary. Buying local food that doesn't have to be trucked across the nation or across the high seas or anything like that, that makes a big difference as well. And then of course local, organic, farm grown, pasture raised, cage free, all that stuff too definitely makes a big difference. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, it looks like we're coming to the end of the show here. It got to be a pretty late evening. The producers were filming some show about the carbon dioxide sensor, just about monitoring it and hopefully getting an accurate reading, so that if you monitor levels in your house, you can take some steps to correct it or maybe get some indoor plants or whatever the case may be. But the worst part about it is there's really not too many. I mean, you can't really just put an air purifier in your house and then lower the carbon dioxide levels. You have to, get a plant and then feed it and make it healthy and all that. Indoor plants is about the only thing that I've found that makes it healthy, makes your indoor air healthier. Now, and of course ventilation. But in the middle of wintertime when it's 6 degrees outside, ventilation is not going to work out so well. But by and large, the indoor plants are probably the way to go. Yeah, year round, as long as you water them and take care of them, give them plant food and all that good fun stuff too. So, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to Tex Messages, the Resurrection. We should likely be back again tomorrow night, and we're just gonna cut the show short today. Sometimes you ladies and gentlemen at home seem to prefer a shorter show, so on occasion we will probably do that. But we're definitely honored to have you joining us here. We salute you and have a good one.